Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the UAE Pavilion and welcome to yet again a milestone for the UAE. I would love to welcome you to a very exciting event as the UAE is yet again at the very front of pronouncing a very exciting news. And I would not like to take much of the event. Please help welcome me, Her Excellency Maryam, the Minister of Climate Change and Environment, to deliver her speech.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here with us today. Exciting, we're here, I think, on day 7 of COP28, and we're all, I have to say a big shout out to my team. I know we're very exhausted. It's early mornings, late nights, but there's so much positivity going on, and we're just really, really happy. We're really happy that this, let's say, the UAE's natural optimism is rubbing off. So it's an honor to welcome you all here on behalf of the UAE during our COP28 presidency and to have this very important announcement. A week ago, we set the bar high with the first day agreement on adopting the agenda, getting the loss and damage operationalized, getting funds in it. We also had the Food Systems Declaration, 134 signatories on board. These are all historic moments for so many things. So we've really, on health, on nature, on food, on so many aspects, we have really reached milestone moments. I also had the privilege, as you know, I'm the food systems lead, to announce a $200 million new investment with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, really spearheading now how we can bring investments into innovations and scaling them up. We promised the world we would host the most inclusive and action-oriented COP. I believe so far we've done so. And of course, this is not just us as the UAE, this is for the world, this is for humanity, and this is for all the young people that are listening to us. So, today, I'm immensely proud about following up on some of the major milestones that we have done on our climate change journey. And today, we have reached another significant milestone, and we are announcing our National Adaptation Plan Roadmap. Now, this roadmap will set out the path and journey to the development implementation of a National Adaptation Plan, NAP, which you all know, which will be an ambitious strategy to reduce our vulnerability and strengthen our resilience in the face of a changing climate. The NAP will set out how we will respond to the impacts of a changing climate more comprehensively than ever before, and it is squarely driven by the science. All of this is particularly vital for the UAE, given our location in a region that is highly vulnerable to climate change. Changes in temperatures, humidity levels, seawater levels, rainfall patterns, and even extreme events like cyclones are projected to pose significant risks to the UAE's economy, environment, and society if left unchecked. And as temperatures rise, the magnitude of the impact of more frequent summer temperatures like this cannot be underestimated. I don't know if some of you have been here in the summertime. It does go often above 50 degrees Celsius. Now, what this tells us very clearly is that adaptation is not an option, it is a must. The NAP will work to mitigate these risks and impacts by identifying priority areas, aligning national policy, setting out key actions for government, society, and economy, and ensuring that we are as prepared as can be. Now, the roadmap builds up on a 5-decade history of initiatives, including the National Climate Change Adaptation Program, the NCCAP, which we launched in 2019, and also the Climate Change Research Network, CCRN, we love using acronyms, which was established in 2021. Now, NAP is built on climate science as well as insights from the UNFCCC and the world's climate academia. And throughout its development, we have made sure to incorporate viewpoints from groups across society, so including women, men, children, youth, people of determination, the elderly, migrant workers, indigenous communities, and low-income groups. And I welcome the NAP Roadmap's sector-specific approach that recognizes that we must all play our part, but that different parts of society have unique needs and therefore require unique solutions. On that note, I want to thank the Global Green Growth Institute for their partnership in the development of this roadmap. Thank you so much. Alongside, of course, my colleagues and team who have worked with you from the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Although this is a hugely significant step, it is a first step. And with today's announcement and the work ahead on the roadmap and subsequent plan, we complete the circle and cement our proactive approach to addressing both the consequences as well as the contributors to climate change. The NAP Roadmap is a testament to our robust commitment to ensuring coordinated climate adaptation at both federal and emirate levels. And by bringing together the knowledge, skills, and experience of all the parts of our great society, we can make sure that we are both prepared for and securing the future of our environment, the future of our people, and the future of our nation. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for very inspiring words. And thank you for announcing the UAE roadmap. As you mentioned, this is not our first step. We have done a lot for the adaptation file, and this is our attempt to close the circle. And now let me introduce Ms. Muna Al-Amoudi, the Director of Climate Change Department, to give us a run-through as how this roadmap will work.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm delighted to have Her Excellency the Minister with us today, and also most of the ministry team is also on board with the full force to support the work that is ongoing. So in this specific milestone that we are talking about, I'm going to emphasize on the roadmap that has been developed for the National Adaptation Plan development of the UAE. First of all, as Her Excellency explained in her speech, we are actually located in a very vulnerable location in the region like a GCC, where basically we're facing high temperatures, raised level of the seawater levels, changes in the pattern when it's come to the raining seasons, changes also when it's come to the humidity level, these kind of the climate risk that definitely will have a significant impact to the different segment of the society. So development of the NAP, as Her Excellency explained, is actually been built on the existing program, which is to some extent were developed in 2019. And that specific program had a set of different climate risks that has been identified. To be specific, when we did the risk assessment in 2019, the high priority sectors, like for example, when we talk about energy, environment, health, and infrastructure, were actually highlighted. As you can see, if you've been living here with us for at least 10 years, you will notice the changes in the raining seasons, and also the intensity of the raining, and how that has been impacting our infrastructure. The damage of the road that was taking place in Ras Al Khaimah and Fujairah due to the heavy rains, or even sometimes due to the increase on the level of the temperature, that definitely have an impact even on the efficiency of certain utilities and how they produce the electricity for us. So the connections between the climate risk and how that can be really seen across different sectors is really important, because when you set the solutions, it's need to be oriented to that specific need of that sector, and it's to be to some extent at the level and expectation that will definitely mitigate and create that kind of resistance and adaptability to live on that kind of environment. So moving ahead, there was a couple of milestones, but specifically when we talk about the NAP, I need to emphasize that UAE was one of the first ones to issue the NDCs. And on the NDCs that we have, the nationally determined contributions, we always talk about the adaptation aspect. So on that one, we also highlighted our contribution when it's come to the launching the first program of the UAE with the 4 sectors that has been identified. Follow to that, we had also progress made across different sectors when we did the risk assessment. And the risk assessment, of course, had a set of action plan to be developed. So it's not about doing the risk assessment and understanding the risk. It's what you are going to do in each sector to mitigate the risk. So each lead of these mandated, let's say, energy, infrastructure, environment, and health, had to create that kind of clear action plan on how exactly they are going to take the journey to be more adaptive. And definitely with the revisions that was taking place recently and also the needs of creation and development of the National Adaptation Program, there was some talk on how to tailor the program to the NAP. Because the program has been setting purely on the risk assessment concept, where basically the NAP has been built using the UNFCCC's guideline. So, of course, through this process, we were not alone. It was always about using the consultative approach, where basically we call in our dear stakeholders to the floor and request for their input, and request for their feedback, and request for their concerns, challenges, so we can understand better the sector and how they behave with the different climate challenges. Of course, we didn't maintain and kept the 4 sectors only. We went beyond that. So as a part of the NAT, there will be an extension on the sectors that will be covered. In between that, we actually, as a MOCAE team, we had added one new sector that was not mentioned in the beginning, which is the insurance sector. And to create some of the context why the insurance sector came on board between the journey we had taken for the program and the NAP, was actually the need to understand how we can basically assure the infrastructure around us. We are almost talking about cities and how the urban designing will be taking place, how the development will be taking place. All of that is linked to how we are going to assure that these buildings, the infrastructure you build, is basically resistant and have that kind of adaptability to the changes that we're going to have. I want to emphasize that the NAP had, for example, a specific significant elements to be considered. And these elements actually to ensure that we have proper coverage, what's need to be covered under the NAP. So the first bulletin is about increasing the adaptive capacity. And it's not only for the human being, it's the whole ecosystem around it. Second point is about mainstreaming and focusing on the sector. It's not about having a national level plan, but rather than cascading that kind of resolution and having understanding what could be the impact in the Emirates X, Emirates Y, and Sector X, Sector Y. So that level of the resolution is needed as a part of the NAP development. Followed by that, ensuring that we have a hub of data, science, information that can be used as a reference for the future development of the options, solution, and other mitigation that will help us, or other measures actually, that will help us to be more adaptive. Followed by that is about creating an app as a guiding document that can be used to ensure that we have proper adaptation planning, proper implementation, and proper monitoring. Because if you want to really have an impact of your plans, you need to make sure that you have a follow-up to ensure that the solution is really actually working. Does it need to be adjusted? Is it not anymore valid because of the change on the context or the environment around it? So all of that will be taken care while we have the development process taking place. Followed by that, the benchmarking. Of course, it was a really very nice exercise with the colleagues from GGI to understand how many lab submissions is there. What's the nature of the NAPs that are available globally? How each sector or each nation is actually developing their NAP? Is it the same? Is it following purely the technical guideline of the UNFCCC's? Or it's actually having something unique elements that can basically also used for the NAP development of the UAE? The last point is about demonstrating our commitment. It's always about the commitment to the Paris Agreement. Being a party of this, let's say, a treaty or convention is really important to even, I won't say tick the boxes, but rather than ensuring that we have that kind of leadership when it's come even to commit ourselves and be part of the voluntary requirement of the Paris Agreement. So through the workshops and the meetings that was conducted with the different, as Her Excellency highlighted, different working groups or different segment of the society and different affected vulnerable communities, being youth, children, women, elderly, or let's say people of determination, and even some of the sectors that have major industries or major private sector or financial. So all the kind of categorization to understand the contribution of different sectors was really important. So it was some sort of high-level mapping to understand who's doing what and what they have in their sector, and also understand what they are expecting from NAP. With that, we came up with the vision. And the vision that includes some of the key elements that was discussed during the workshop. And on that specifically, I want to emphasize on certain point. Let's say, for example, the point about focusing on circularity and natural-based solutions. People will be thinking this is very common, very much used, but I think it's not used to the capacity it should be. This is one. Secondly, the point about building climate economy resilience. This is to ensure that we grow, but we grow sustainably and ensure that there is no effective or effect and risk that is coming from the climate that cannot be mitigated while we're having our growth taking place. The last element I want to emphasize on is about ensuring that we have a science. Of course, it's always the point that we don't have enough science, enough data has been used in the development either of policies, report, or a strategy. But we are actually keen. We do have some of the good platform that we can refer to in order to have that kind of climate data built and making the NAP as a hub for the climate informations. When we talk about the consideration on the development process, so I already stated about the sector, I already stated the Emirates and sub-national level the components, things to do with the society inclusiveness and the vulnerable community, things to do with the working group. I need to emphasize on the point. As you are aware of, the ministry is already having the Climate Change Council, which has been chaired by Her Excellency Mariam El-Meheri. And as a part of this NAP development, we will have one working group, and this working group will be technical. The technical part of it, in the sense that we have the representation of the local emirates, local and federal entities within that working group. And then we will have two advisory committees. One will be focused on stakeholders to ensure that kind of mix of different people are part of it. And then you have another pillar or another side of it, which is basically covering the science behind it, the data, the information. So we do have a good number of entities who are part of the UAE ecosystem, who are sitting in, let's say, a very much excellent data that can be utilized for the NAP development. So we're trying to utilize that as well. So here is explaining well how it's going to be. So with the council, with the advisory committee in the both side, and then the working group. So the key slide is actually this one. So how actually the NAP development will be taking place. I did explain that we're using the UNFCCC's technical guideline, and that you can see it in the last row. So we have element A up to D. So A is about laying the groundwork and addressing the gap, where basically we have two specific milestones for that. So we start with something about assessment and data gathering to understand our current status and build the baseline, which is something very much common across different plans and strategy development process. Followed by preparatory elements, where basically we carry out something called vulnerability assessment. It's really important to understand how vulnerable are each sector, so we can set the priorities when we put the action plan to mitigate that kind of risk. And on that specific element, we have two milestones. So the first one is the actual vulnerability assessment of the 8th sector, and that cascading will also take place in the local Emirates level, followed by adaptation finance. So ensuring that what kind of solutions is needed is also funded to some extent. Our funding support is also required for the assessment itself. Followed by the last two elements, which is about implementation and reporting and monitoring. On that specific elements, we have 2 milestones as well. We saw that the capacity building of our nation is required. We can see that there is understanding of the adaptation concept. There is, to some extent, a good work happening, let's say, in some of the Emirates with the clarity on how they're going to have their adaptation plan. And I think some of the Emirates do have already an existing plan, but what will be good to have that kind of umbrella that can support the 7 Emirates to work together. And on that specific milestone, we're also having the governance to be established. Of course, to maintain and have successful execution of the plan, you need to make sure that you have proper governance to follow and monitor and report later on. This kind of cycle will be needed to ensure that you have always update your, I won't say risk assessment, vulnerability assessment, and then followed by the assessment, followed by the solution that you are going to uptake for each sector. With that, I really thank everyone for joining us today, and I hope it was a good session for all of you.
Thank you, Mana, for a very clear explanation. And similar to what the vision was saying, the aim here is to have the UAE be the lead in climate adaptation. And for us to ensure that we become the leader in climate adaptation, we require all the actors and all the supports in the countries, from our little ones till the eldest in the groups, to be part of our mission. And with that, we know that perhaps a lot of you might have questions, and we have the answers to provide. So Muna, if you would like to join us in the group, and DJI colleagues, for us to have Q&A, and we're happy to support where necessary. Anyone has a question, please raise your hand so I can give you the mic.
Shame, if you allow me, I want to take the opportunity. Of course, the roadmap development was actually happening in the way that was really accelerated. So on that specific point, I would really like to thank every single stakeholder who was with us, really. From the time we have the inspection report till the time we have the last page of the report ready. So it was really an acceleration mode, but I will be really keen to see the next step, to see the deployment of the next steps, and what's expected from the stakeholders, what they are expecting from the ministry as a next step. It's really important to showcase that kind of commitment from the top, because such a plan will require certain effort to be put in, and that include that the knowledge sharing to be taken place, sometimes maybe resources to be allocated, being that a human or financial resources, but eventually this is the commitment of the different entity, being local or federal, and even private sector. I would like also to thank the DJI team again.
Thank you, Mona Al-Amoudi, and the team as well. It's been a very informative report. My name is Adra Mansouri from Ittihad Rail. Just a question on the slide that you talked about the risk assessment. It seems that the risk is like the key information source for building such report. And I was just wondering, because you highlighted 3 main elements as a direct consequence, and one of them was the transportation disruptions. Can you just elaborate on that, if you may? Thank you.
I will leave some of the room for our colleagues from DJI also to support. But as a start, is that this risk assessment was initiated, or let's say developed or identified actually during the program time. Nevertheless, this need to be revisited, as I understood from our journey that we're going to be part of the NAP under the vulnerability assessment. So I think maybe Salim or Mary, you can basically shed light on how that will be.
Thank you. Thank you, Engineer Muna. Thank you for the question. I think you are referring to the 2019 climate risk assessments that were undertaken under the lead of the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Under that assessment, they covered 4 clusters, but it is also interchangeably used with sectors. Infrastructure was among the 4, and the 5th one was added in 2021, 2022, and that's insurance. Under infrastructure, transportation or transport was identified, along with ways, ports, rails, buildings, and other sub-sector or sub-cluster. One of the impacts identified in that assessment, very preliminary assessment, as I understand, is a disruption on transport or transportation. And so it was just highlighted here as an example for which a priority measure was supposed to be passed or identified as the immediate action following that assessment. But as Muna mentioned, that will be revisited in the NAP development that will take place very soon.
Okay. Thank you, Mana, and your expert panel. Congratulations on the publication of the roadmap, and really looking forward to seeing the rest of this journey. My name's Alison from the British Embassy, and I just wanted to ask if you could tell us any more at this stage about the sectors that you'll be looking at or what the journey will look like.
During the Inception workshop that happened in May 2023, we had a discussion with different stakeholders, and there are a list of sectors are identified. It is not just 1, 2. For example, education is one of the key sectors. So this is just one example to highlight it. Along with the 5 priority sectors, we may additionally come up with 3 more. In that, education is one for sure. Rest, still we are in the process of NAP development. During the process, we may be able to come up with the 3 solid identified sectors. Hope I have answered your question, ma'am.
Just to briefly add on that, thank you, Salim. Yes, so Salim was mentioning about the 4 or the 5 priority sectors, which includes health, environment, energy, and infrastructure. Under each of that sector or cluster, there are subsectors, or actually economic sectors embedded. There's a 5th one, insurance, which was identified or undertaken in 2021, 2022. But under the NAP development, and he's referring to the May Inception workshop, 3 additional sectors will be considered. And a front-runner response from the more than 150 participants put forward education. Also, there is tourism that will be explored. There is also labor, not really a sector, but a thematic area that is also going to be explored when the NAP development is initiated.
And if I may just add to that as well, so a part of the process to zoom in on sectors or subsectors, we have also proposed in the roadmap a multi-criteria methodology for prioritization, which will look at the economic, political, social, environmental, technological implications of the sectors as well, and making sure that happens in a transparent way. That was one of the inputs also coming from all the stakeholder consultations, that they wanted to see the methodology for that prioritization in order to make sure that we then get to those sectors that are of most impact in UAE.
And also, if I could add to that, they're not a sector. However, we're planning to ensure that our NAP is extremely inclusive. So all throughout our NAP processes, we're going to make sure that we take gender consideration, youth inclusion, representative, people determination, labor workers in the country as well. So as much as possible, all throughout our NAP process, it will be inclusive.
Congratulations, Mabruk, on the launch of the NAP. Sean Robertson from Innovation and Insight. There are a number of ways for private sector companies, particularly in the UAE, whether it's the SME Climate Hub or the UAE Alliance for Climate Action, where private sector entities, some of the greatest sources of emissions, not just here in the UAE, but around the world, have voluntarily committed to reduce and produce net zero 2050 strategies, hopefully on more aggressive timelines as well. Is a part of your launch and engagement plan to go directly to those private sector companies and identify areas where, fitting with the NAP, we can work together to accelerate and really ramp up quickly? Thank you.
I will give some rooms also for our GGI team to respond. But in general, any kind of engagement. يعني, I need really to emphasize on this point because I think our colleagues from the ministry do understand that very well. Any kind of engagement when it's come to the policy, strategy, or plan development under the government of the UAE, the way it's been carried out today is not anymore like before. We never have that kind of silos of engaging only the local emirates and the federal entity. You will see even in the Council of the Climate Change, we have actually representative of the private sector attending the meetings with us in the council. This is very formal, where you have the minister chairing, and we actually showcase every single initiative we have in the climate. And this is not only to showcase that we're doing that for the council purposes, for the meetings, but even the engagements that is happening throughout different projects. Yani we have, for example, as you stated, the net zero strategy. The net zero strategy itself had plus 500 feedback points. Plus, it was huge. When we started the exercise, yani, at least my experience with the NAP will be similar, and even going beyond that, because we ensuring that we have that kind of coverage and inclusiveness, as Shema highlighted, to ensure that every segment of the society is part of the development process and also part of the deployment process. So that is really critical for us, because we do understand in order to have a successful results and have a, let's say, meeting the expectation of the leadership, you need to do that. You cannot do it yourself.
Thank you, Engineer Muna. It is very encouraging, I may say, that there is really that level of awareness, at least from the Ministry of Climate Change to begin with, the imperatives of engaging with the stakeholders, principal to which is this private sector. If you notice in the slide on the milestones of the NAP development initiative, one of which is on adaptation finance. And key to understanding that, how do we unlock investments and flowing of that finance for adaptation, mainstreaming that into policies, the participation of the private sector will be imperative. So that's why it is being approached and tagged repeatedly as being inclusive, being participatory, and private sector will definitely play a key role.
So we are being asked to conclude. So we will take 2 questions, and the final 2 questions, and then for us to wrap up. So please.
Hi, congratulations for launching this. This is great. I just had a quick clarifying question. This is Dharashri from the Landmark Group. And one of the questions that I had was, we talked about youth, we talked about private sector, and the one thing that connects all of this is education and awareness. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on how a lot of the climate change terminology becomes much more accessible to residents, much more accessible to people who are, really trying to learn more about it, but don't really have the knowledge yet for it.
I think I will set the scene and then as previous questions. So for the capacity building and ensuring that we have the awareness level really been tackled in the way that will be serving the adaptation plan was something we had a very thorough discussion with our colleagues from GGI, because as I said, maybe the sectors that was identified earlier was very much focused on these 4, which we had as a part of the program. But in the NAP, we are not doing that kind of, let's say, picking, but rather than letting the process do the selection for us. So there is a priority that will be given according to the assessment of the vulnerability results and according to the national interest and the leadership feedback to have the selection of these sector in a way that will be serving every single requirement. The other element I need to emphasize on is that I always, as a part of the discussion with any third-party engagement or let's say partners that we have, we always ensure that we have a capacity building taking place, awareness is part of it, being that it's been targeted to specific, let's say, leads of the different sectors, and that to ensure that the cascading taking place. Or even to the community sometime, to ensure that we have that level of resolution and feeding into the education. Yani, for example, one of the good example, I think, Shema, you can give more on to that. is the content that was requested from the ministry to feed into the green education and the green curriculum initiative that was initiated by the Ministry of Education. It's very intensive, how I can say, program, because it's not only targeting the student, even the parents been targeted. The surrounding community around the school has been targeted. So you can see the intensively that you start with one, which is the school and the student, to the teacher, to the parents, and then the surrounding community. So you have that kind of multiple effect, chain of reaction taking place, ensuring that cascading and the awareness also been spread across different segments of the society.
Thank you, Mona. Just last question before we wrap up.
Thank you very much. It's Balaj Adam from Institute of Public Health, UAE University, and I'm a delegate actually of the Association of Schools of Public Health in the Europe region. We heard about many sectors, private sector involvement, education. I would like to emphasize health now as the final comment here. I very much welcome that health is there as a sector. A couple of weeks ago when we had a meeting online, I started to emphasize health already. And we had the first health day a couple of days ago here, first in the history of COP. So and everybody is talking about health, so it's quite straightforward that health must be there. What I would like to emphasize here, and I'm interested in your opinion on how to operationalize the involvement of health, and especially the involvement of public health in the development of NAP. Thank you very much.
The operationalization of all these sectors actually will, the first step, as Muna has emphasized, is through the NAP Development Initiative. Once that initiative officially begins, the process is now like jump-started to switched on. But the initiative has already started actually way back in the 2019 climate risk assessment where health was identified as among the 4 priority sectors. And in that regard, I think, for example, at the Emirates level, Abu Dhabi is actually now also, or is it the national health, that is a health program that is being developed, adaptation plans specific for health. And we were so happy back in May to hear directly from the Ministry of Health and Prevention that they have jump-started the process of developing an adaptation plan specific to health.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending the announcement of the roadmap. Please do approach us later on if you have additional questions or if you would love to support us in this project. Thank you.
كيف حالك؟ ما شاء الله عليك.